What's up, everybody? I've missed you. Have you been washing your hands? I, I know you have. Oh, I'm excited about today because I get to interview a magician. Now, many of you know me as something other than a magician. I'm a motivational business speaker, but my start was in magic. So right out of all the way through junior high and through high school and then through college, magic was a passion. And through that time, I did magic shows at kids' birthdays, and then I ended up after college becoming a professional magician, which made my parents so proud. But I have kept up that passion all the way through, and I still consider myself a magician. Occasionally, some of you, if you've seen me in a keynote, you might have seen me do a magic trick or maybe one and a half. And the ironic and tragic thing, get ready to be sad. I was super stoked about magic before March, and I was adding more magic and all of the wonderful things that can mean, including audience interaction, you up on stage with a helper, all of those things, of course, right now just seem so ancient. Like the thought of being in a crowd, or the thought of being a performer and having someone next to you and being able to have them touch your playing cards or whatever. All that seems so super weird. But I love magic, and that's why today is such a good day. There is a guy with us. This guy, we're going to ask him about his career, but this guy has just done it. He has been a working pro. And I think that's interesting because magic, like music, has hobbyists. And magic, like music, has amazing hobbyists. And some of the people who push the art furthest are sometimes those amateur magicians or part time professionals because they have a different goal. As if you got kids and you got a mortgage, you got to make some dough. And I'm almost positive that second category is Cody Fisher. So I can't wait to know him better, and I can't wait for you to know him better. Please welcome to your living room, Cody Fisher from Texas. Cody Fisher, the audience goes crazy.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
You don't look like a magician. You don't have a top hat. You don't have a bow tie. I don't see a bunny.
This is what a magician looks like in quarantine. They're unshaven, a little bit, just getting a lot of office work done, just a lot of things that I normally don't have time to do. I have more time to do it. So
Can't
yeah,
imagine why.
casual today.
What is there news? What's happening? Oh, the quarantine, right? Oh, pandemic.
Don't
Cody,
worry about it. It's no big deal. It's if you hear about it, just don't worry about it.
here is what I have learned doing these interviews, Cody. The best part of the interview starts at the end. It just takes a while for my guest to relax, and I think me to relax, and then we kind of lose it, and that's when it starts to be fun. So, with your permission, Mr. Magician from Texas, I just realized I want to add your name to that. Look at that. I would like to start at the end of the interview. Would that be okay with you?
Sure. Let's start at the end, then we'll work our way to the beginning.
That means I'm not going to ask you about your credentials or your career or all the normal stuff. I'm going to ask you some short questions, and the rules are no thinking, just answer. Guilty pleasure when you're streaming something, Netflix. What are you watching right now?
What am I watching right now? Now, we just finished watching Queen's Gambit.
Oh, pretty great. Now, are you a chess player?
Uh, let's put it this way: I know how to chess, and I play with my boys. My youngest was actually on the chess team for a while, but we just like we just like chess. We like the subject matter. The youngest one's obviously not watching Queen's Gambit, but me and the older boys sort of checked it out.
Oops, I just pushed the wrong thing. So let's talk about playing with your kids. I know you've played games like Old Maid and I don't even know what card games with your kids. When you do that, have you ever cheated? Yes or no? Quick answer. No, no thinking. Come on, you're a magician. Have you ever cheated?
No, no, no. Not at least not where it at least not where it matters. I think the last game we played a few weeks ago actually was Monopoly. I haven't played that in a very very long time, and so that was fun. But I have done some stuff where like we initially started off like playing a game, like maybe blackjack or something, and I was using some marked cards. where I could tell what the cards were, you know. And so my oldest one sort of finally caught on to me. He's like, "There's something funny about these cards." And he was sort of, you know, holding them like this where I couldn't see the backs, but no, certainly never cheated where I didn't tell him I was, you know, playing a trick on him. But I usually expect something like that from me anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, come on. When you're holding a pack of cards, even if it's old maid cards or Uno or whatever, tell me like one of those cards has not slipped into your palm. Just tell me, come on. Accidentally.
no, never cheated at Old Maid.
Your
It's too
kids are
much
not
fun.
listening.
It's too much fun just to play it straight. So, but you know, you said Old Maid, so I'll give you. If I'd have had this on camera, I would be a millionaire because I could send it to America's Funniest Home Videos or whatever else. This is years ago when my middle son Aiden was about, I don't know, 6 years old or something. We were playing Old Maid, and he was the cutest baby. We're dealing out all the cards. It was like me, my wife, and him, and my oldest, and we're sitting there dealing all the cards, and we all get our cards like this. And you know, Old Maid is about poker face, right? So he holds up his cards, and then we're all looking around at each other, and then he just immediately, just we're not immediately, just sort of slow. He looks at his cards. His face just, he just gets this huge, this horrible frown on his face. It was so painfully obvious that he had the Old Man card. We all just died laughing. But yeah, we play games together all the time. I think more families should, not just during COVID, but just in general. It's fun.
Uh, I'm just pretty sure you've cheated. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, Cody, we get in your car, the stereo comes on. What would we be listening to? Is that music, a podcast? What are you listening to?
More than likely, it would be 89.5 Austin. It's just a classical music station.
Classical. No way. Are you a musician?
Yes, I was when I went to the University of Texas. I actually wanted to. My major was biochemistry, but I wanted to minor in piano. And back then, at least, you couldn't get a minor in piano. You had to major in it. And so I sort of made this decision early on. I'm like, okay, well, I don't see myself. I was a career as a pianist, so I went sort of the science route. But yeah, I love to play piano.
All right. So if I say Cody, quick, I'm going to turn on some awesome classical music. What would you recommend for me right off the top?
Oh my gosh, I like the classics. I like Beethoven, Mozart, Wagner. You know, stuff like that. I like music that I can, music that moves me, music that I can feel, music I can sort of get into, where you can almost like feel what as Beethoven said, music lets you go into the mind of the composer and kind of see what they were feeling. I like stuff like that. I tend to steer away from sort of like top 40 music or anything with lyrics. I'm not wild about music with lyrics in it.
I am the same way, and let me ask you the question. So I'm a drummer. I wanted to be a professional jazz drummer for a while. I was super into it in college, but I cannot listen to lyrics for some reason. When the song is happening, I'm listening to everything and loving it, but I couldn't tell you the name of the song afterwards. Is that similar to what you're talking about, or is it more of a I don't want to hear words?
I don't know. Maybe it's me getting older. I think that darn young music the kids are into. I don't know, but yeah, sort of the lyrics today seem to get in the way, and I don't think that the lyrics have meaning like some of the older stuff when you could listen to the lyrics and it maybe told the story or it told about the time or just the environment we were living in. You could kind of the artist was trying to convey something to you. I think now with lyrics, they just get in the way.
You're doing great. I'm moving on. I'm trying to keep you off balance. Favorite comic, like stand up.
Excuse me.
Favorite stand up comic
Oh, favorite comic. Okay. Let me see.
of any generation.
Oh, okay. I really like Brian Regan.
Hmm.
I've a few time in concert, and I like the fact. What I like about Brian Regan is the fact that he could go to for a family group. He could do it for a corporate group. He could go to the next day, do the exact same set for maybe a church group or I like it because it's not limited to any specific audience. And so that's why I say he's my favorite comic. Now, as far as comedy in general, I've got a wide variety of comics that I like. But if I had to say who do I think is has figured it out professionally, I'd say Regan.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all based on what I know of your career. When you were little, did you ever did you guys have comedy albums around, or did you listen when you were a kid?
Oh gosh, yes. I remember the first one I found was I think it was a record, and it was at my grandparents' house. They had it was Bill Cosby. Uh,
Which
it
album?
was just a yeah, it was just old school Cosby stuff. And I remember playing it in my grandmother's room on her record player or stereo, whatever it was, one of those old fashioned ones. And I just remember laughing and laughing and laughing. And the great thing about again, I guess Cosby's not what he's done recently, but his career kind of had the same thing with Regan. His stuff was you could listen to it with your family in any situation, any environment, and it was still it was just safe.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because I grew up with Cosby. I memorized, I think, 4 or 5 albums. But as a kid, I didn't know that was. I did. I just did it. And now it turns out he's an ass. So, can you separate? Like, can you listen to Cosby now without thinking of what we know he has done? Are you able to enjoy him?
Oh my gosh, I um, I don't know what the correct answer is, and I think it's different for everybody who's watching. I will tell you, for me personally, it is very I can't. It's very hard for me to listen to Cosby knowing now what I know. It's just it's always sort of in the back of my mind, and it sort of saddens me that that childhood memory, one of the first comedy records I ever heard, is sort of been tainted by what has come to light later on in his career. It's sad, but I personally, it's hard for me to separate those two.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cody. I can't listen to him even a sentence, and that is upsetting. But ironically, like you mentioned Wagner, I also love Wagner. That guy was an ass, but not so personal, right? It's very easy for me to separate the music from him because I really don't know much about him as a person. But Cosby, I no, and same with Louis C.K. I just really struggle listening to him anymore.
Yeah, yeah, we saw him. Oh my gosh, we a friend of mine uh, gets comedy tickets or used to, but back in the day before we could gather without killing each other. Um, but we saw Louis C.K. I think one of the last times before all that sort of stuff came out. And yeah, it's sort of I'm kind of like the same way. It's very hard to listen to any of his old stuff without thinking about what you know now.
Yeah, which is a bummer. But also, it brings it back to you, because one of the things that I see about you, and I think I've seen you only on video. I've never seen you in front of a live audience. But what strikes me about you is you are going for a likable character. You are not a made up person. Like you're not a caricature of a magician. What I see is you're pretty much Cody up there. And you are a very likable, wholesome, clean, like just a guy we all want to hang out with. And so hearing that you're struggling with artists who are icky does it seems completely consistent with me.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I never set out. Yeah. I think when we all get started off in magic in general, we all try to. I mean, I wanted to be the David Copperfield. I wanted to have the big illusions. I wanted the cool music. I wanted the motorcycles and all that stuff. And what you soon real the Lance Burton with the tuxedo and the doves, and I had all that stuff for a while. I had a bird act for a while, if you can believe it. Um, but but what I think what you have to do, or any professional has to, I think amateurs are free to do whatever they want to. They can, be a tribute act or something. I saw a guy online that he did Lance Burton just as good as Lance Burton did Lance Burton, but
Mm.
he's never going to be Lance Burton. But I think once you get to the status level of a sort of a professional, I think you really have to put all that aside, and I think you really have to either decide that you're going to be a character all the time, some type of character, or you're just going to be yourself. And I never wanted to be a one person on stage and then a different person off stage. I didn't think I was going to be able to sort of keep track of those two personas. So I'm just like, I'm just going to be me, and just, hope that they like me on stage and off stage as well.
Well, for my personal preference, that is the way to do it. I mean, totally. We know exceptions, like Matt King, for example, huge exception. We all love Matt King. He's got a persona, but mostly magicians who act like someone else just leave me totally cold.
Yeah, yeah. Or what bothers me, and I guess this is not just for magicians, we're talking about magicians now, but I've met, going to the castle and just traveling around the way I do, I've met several performers. They're completely, their personalities are completely, not their characters. Characters, one, that's a whole different thing. But their personalities are completely different on and off stage. Or on stage, they're this really likable, just fun loving kind of character that you think you could have a conversation with. And then backstage or after the show's over with, they're just really horrible people.
I think I know that guy.
I've met him
I
a few times.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Boy, we just got into it, Cody. So I started in magic and then left to speaking in front of business audiences, and for that, for the speaking part, there's more of a premium to be your authentic self than as a magician. And I think that's not consistently true anymore, but generally speaking, 20 years ago, speakers were supposed to be more or less the same person on stage as off, whereas magicians, not, it feels like a later thing that we're coming to being authentic or genuinely being your likable self. First of all, do you think I have that right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. At least that's the trend. That's the that I'm saying. I mean, I remember, I don't know who wrote the book or something, but it was a book about how to find your character as a magician. And I remember reading this book and taking notes and like literally just trying to find a character. And when I was doing that is that there were so many different characters that I particularly liked that I became an amalgamation, none of which was me, but was of several different characters. I mean, I was this sort of serious performer at one time, then all of a sudden I would switch over to this sort of con man Harry Anderson character, and then I would, with the next trick I would switch into a different character. And a friend of mine pointed it out to me, and he's like, "Cody, just be you." And I was like, I didn't understand that at first. It was just be you on stage, and that was the hardest thing for me to do, was just be me.
Yeah, that wisdom strikes me that something a younger version of you and a younger version of me could be sitting drinking beer, and a older version of us could be telling us that, and we would have nodded, right? Oh yeah, that's good. I agree. But yet you don't really get it till you're grown up.
No, I don't think that you do. Now, I will admit this to you, and this is something my friend Peter, he's also a performer here in town. He pointed out to me. I am on stage. I'm a little bit more outgoing than I am probably in my own personal life. In my own personal life, I'm probably a little bit more reserved. Whenever my wife takes me to her, her company holiday party. I'm not the guy with everybody, gathered around me, let's show tricks. She has to beg me to bring something to the holiday party, because they all know I'm a magician. So um, when I'm on stage, I think I'm a little bit more relaxed than I am probably when I'm off stage. I don't know if that probably sounds counterintuitive. I don't know.
No, that's right on. I think that's very common for us performers that we are more introverted than anyone would ever guess. We're more shy than anyone would ever guess. But on stage, we appear to be the opposite, but that's because we're in control. That is our little world. We're in charge of that.
Yeah, you own everything right here. All this is your real estate and you own it. You can control everything that happens. And even when you're interacting with someone, you're still more in control. Whereas in your real life, everybody's got their own stage and everybody's, their own boss. And so it's a little bit more intimidating. Even this interview that I'm doing right now, not 100% comfortable doing it. I have no idea what you're going to ask me next.
Well, thank you for that. I don't want you to know because I mean, as these interviews have been fun for me, Cody. But what I'm learning is that it's the more off topic we can get, the more fun it is, and the more I let people do their talking points. Like I know, for example, a million people have said, "Cody, how did you get into magic?" And I know you already have told that story 1,000 times, so I don't really want to hear it because I don't want. I want to get you off it. Tell me about this
Okay.
though. Uh, I think in some ways we have similar paths. I was I took college very seriously, and I thought I was headed to law school, and I was good at it, and I had good grades, and it was a stunner for my family to say I want to be a magician. You're a biochemist, is that right?
Hmm.
So that's a
Former biotech.
serious, that's a sciencey thing, and suddenly you're saying I'm going to be on stage. What was that like?
It was a shock to even myself. I mean, well, it's kind of actually more of a serious story than anything else. I was all throughout high school wanted to go to medical school. That was sort of my dream to be a doctor, to be a physician. And so I was preparing for it all through high school. Went to University of Texas. All my undergraduate courses were all the pre-med classes. All tons of math and tons of science. And it was about my senior year when I was starting the process of applying to medical school. I was working at a hospital here in Austin, and I was doing wound care. And now the stuff that I was doing back then, where there's no way you would let a non-licensed do, but back when I was doing it, just a wound care tech could do these sort of things. So I remember going room to room to room doing wound care. And one day, I somebody had asked me a question in the hallway about one of my patients I was seeing that day, and I replied back with some comment like, "Oh, yeah, I've already done the diabetic foot in room 417," or something like that. And I didn't really think about it at the time because I was, just slammed with wound care stuff to do. But later that day, I was thinking about it, and it occurred to me that I referred to this human being as a diabetic foot in a room number. And I remember I was sort of having sort of coffee in a coffee shop with my, well, not wife at the time, but my girlfriend at the time. And we started talking about it. And I kind of got like emotional. I was like, that wasn't a diabetic foot in room four, whatever. That was somebody's mom. That was somebody's grandmother,
Mm,
probably. That was she was probably a wife. She was an aunt or something.
right.
And I had reduced it down to that. And I kind of realized that I'd gotten a little bit cold after working in a hospital for only a year. And so my senior year, after planning to go into medicine for years and years, I decided that that wouldn't be good for my personality. And so I just went into graduate school and wanted to teach something that was very non-personal, which is biochemistry, organic chemistry.
Did you get a postgraduate degree?
Yes, I ended up with a master's degree. I sort of they call it they don't call it dropping out. They call it mastering out. But I was working on my doctorate in biochemistry. If you want more specifically, protein crystallography. Boy, that's a real interesting topic.
I saw. I was reading. I was googling you. So I think you're all but the PhD, right? Is that what they?
Yes.
Dude, you went a long
No,
way.
no doctorate for me. I sometimes I think about it. It'd be nice to be Dr. Fisher and stuff. But what I tell you, what it has done for me. People ask me often, "Do you feel like you wasted what 5, 6, 7, 8 years between undergraduate and graduate school, all that time spent at university? Do you feel like that time was wasted? Because now I perform for a living." And the answer is absolutely not. Um, a lot of performers that I know they're just awesome performers, man. They did it their whole life. They did it in high school. That they went straight into it. I had a long pause before that where I was educating myself in a very specific niche field, and that was science, biochemistry. So what I found is that I ended up working for a lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of biotech companies, and stuff like that, doing a lot of conferences. For doctors and stuff, and specifically pharmaceutical companies wanted me to be able to relate to doctors. They wanted me to be funny and entertaining and engaging, but they also like the fact that when I'm talking about a new drug or something and I'm talking about charts and showing active enzyme binding sites and reaction rates, they like the fact that I could also talk the talk. So it yeah, it was helpful.
So you can talk proteins and enzymes and find their chosen card.
At the same time.
Well, I've got the same question that I know you've got because I just know, Cody, that young people who want to be a professional magician come to talk to you and they don't know if college is worth it, and they want to know, like, should I major in theater or whatever. You kind of hinted at it, but what would you tell that 19-year-old kid?
I would tell that 19-year-old kid the same thing that my mentor told this 19, 20-year-old kid. My mentor was a gentleman by the name of Fred the Great Scott Donaldson. Have you heard from Brad?
Only from you on the teaching video.
Okay. Yeah. So Fred had this little magic shop here in town. And I say it was a magic shop. It was just a little like sectioned off part of his garage. And it was called the Scott Magic Company. And I remember this was towards the end of my tenure at the University of Texas, asking Fred if I should go into magic full time or I should go into pharmaceutical sales or continue on with the PhD thing. And what Fred told me, I don't think I understood it at the time, but he said only go into full-time performing if you absolutely have to. And when he initially told me that, the way I interpreted it was, I guess if there's no other option for you, then go ahead and be a performer. But I later found out what Fred actually meant was, if being a full-time performer is the only thing that you can see that would make you happy in life, then do it. So only do it if you have to.
Fred was a deep thinker.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn something on here. Don't move. Yeah, my take on the college thing is similar. I think college gave me confidence. The way I got a degree in political science, and that means I spent 4 years having teachers that I may or may not have been interested in, handing me projects and say, learn this thing you may or may not be interested in, and then prove it to me. And I did that for 4 years. And by the time I came out of there, I just felt super confident that I could just figure it out. Like, I can figure stuff out. And so then, as in our job as entrepreneurs and performers and marketers and salespeople, all the things you have to be in this job, I felt confident that I don't know any of that, but I can learn it. I've already proven to myself I can learn it. And I say that to young
Yeah.
kids, and they look at me like this.
Well, it's what you just touched on there was something that my son and I we talked about not even a few months back or so. He's taking calculus right now, and way better at it than I was at his age. And he was asking me about why why he's taking calculus. Now he's kind of like genetics are genetics. He's got a math and science gene just like I had, but he was asking me sort of. Do I use calculus, often in everyday life? And if not, why do we have to learn how to do that? And I have to be honest with him. I said, I'll from time to time, if I'm doing a building project, I may use algebra, likely geometry or something if I'm building something. But I can't remember a time just in everyday life where I've actually used calculus. I've never had to find the limit or the derivative of something in daily life. Then he said, "Well, why do you think that I should learn that?" And I said, my response was, I don't know how I came up with this, but my response was, you may not have to use it every single day, but learning something like that makes your sort of brain, your mind think in a way that you would otherwise not be thinking. And I think that is what is helpful.
Well done, Daddy. It's a long game, right? To learn calculus, you're not going to benefit from it this week or next week. It's a long game. So I was googling you and I found lots of different things about you, but I was giggling to myself because I feel like we are spirit animals, Cody. You've done school shows, and I found the thing about your fundraising show, and I'm like, this guy just is driven, and he's paying some bills, and he'll try everything. Am I right? You just like, okay, let's try this. All right, let's go. Is that you?
I think is I think like any sort of entrepreneur in the entertainment business, I think we all are, every one of us, our dream is to have our own theater somewhere and have a theater show where people buy tickets, they buy drinks in the lobby and popcorn, and then come and sit down and watch our magic show. That'd be wonderful. But once you get into it and start performing full time, you realize that's not usually the way it is. You have to market your businesses to companies, whether it's schools, corporate events. Oh my gosh, we had mailing lists for schools, we had mailing lists for churches, we had mailing lists for camps. You name it, we had a mailing list for it back in the day. And what you realize is that not you have to have different programs for each of those types of groups. You wouldn't do an elementary school show would not be the same show you would do for a corporate gig. And so what you do is you find yourself almost being forced, if you will, to be jack of all trade, maybe not master of none, but certainly good enough to pay the bills.
Yeah. I I would call you, and I think me, hopefully in a way that doesn't offend you, blue collar. Meaning, like, I was never, and still am not as a speaker, the kind that, I wasn't the outlier that just was discovered one day and suddenly was everywhere. I just went and kept hammering that nail, and eventually the nail went in. Then I start another, and there was no brilliance, and it just strikes me that you're the same way. Part of the reason you're so good is your intellect and your IQ and your creativity, but part of it is you've been doing it a long time and you're willing. Am I close?
Yeah, I have when I have performers contact me, younger performers, and sort of ask me questions. I don't charge. I'm not like doing mentoring or anything necessarily, but I'm always happy to answer questions. I'll get a phone call, just a few phone calls a year. And what was the question again?
Well, I just compared you to a blue collar magician, meaning like you didn't get discovered like whatever on America's Got Talent or something. You turned yourself into a pro over thousands of performances.
Okay, I know what I was going to say now. Yeah, it's one of those things to where it's easy to look back now at your career, my career, anybody who's been doing it full time. I think it's easy to look at us now and think to ourselves, wow, those guys have it figured out. They know how to really do this market well. And what I tell, people who ask me, I said, hey, listen, it may appear that way now, but you can rest assured that no matter what market I've gone into, whether it was school shows or whatever, I have made every mistake in the book. Um, so, what you're seeing now is sort of the very end of that evolutionary thing where, it starts off and the guy goes and gets, what you're looking at the last phase, I guess. And I say the last phase when in reality, it changes all the time. Just like, right now with the whole COVID situation. This wasn't a market I ever thought I was going to be in. So you either adapt to it and get good at it, or you don't.
I'm going to leave that hanging. As tempting as it is to grab that piece of fruit, I'm leaving it hanging. Um, I want to totally switch topics into something that was in the news recently, Cody. Uh,
Okay.
I think it might have been 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Los Angeles Times did a sort of an expose on the Magic Castle and a culture of racism and sexism. Are you familiar with that article?
I did read that article. I read it from a few different sources, and I knew some of the people that were sort of on the inside. So,
So, as a you're like me. You're kind of an old white guy, old white straight guy. What's your take on all of that? And actually, could you summarize that article for us, in case anyone's listening that doesn't know what we're talking about?
okay, there was an article. Again, I'm gonna always call it at this point here. I'm always gonna call them allegations at this point. That there were some uh, members, maybe employees of this establishment that were behaving in unprofessional ways, and I guess the unprofessional ways could be called. Oh my goodness, I guess maybe some racist comments or maybe some inappropriate, lewd comments made to members of the opposite sex.
Yes, and part of the coda of that article was we have seen a lot of performances with some pretty appalling behavior of men magicians treating women volunteers poorly.
Oh yeah, I mean I mean times are changing, and we have to change with those times. We have to change with the times. We have to be sensitive to the needs of others as performers. And there's probably a small percentage of performers out there that maybe think that, oh, people are just overreacting, or what's the big deal, and yeah, I think that we do need to be more sensitive of what we say to people when we're on stage, or more not sensitive. We need to be more aware. And I think that that's good for anybody who's in a spotlight, whether it be a speaker, a performer, a teacher, a radio DJ, anyone that is that has an audience. I think we need to be more conscious of what we do and what we say. And I think that's not bad advice, just in general.
Yeah. Does your wife well, instead of giving you a leading question, I'll just tell you the backstory. My wife would hate to go to a magic convention. First of all, they teach magic card tricks, which she would never sit through. But also, you and I have been to so many magic conventions, and that poor girlfriend who's there, or the very rare woman
Mhm.
magician, gets
Yeah.
hauled up to the stage to sit there and be the foil for the magician or the prop holder or the person who picks the cards. And my wife has seen that and just thought, "Holy fright! I just want to run because I don't want to be up there for any reason. Often they're treated poorly, and I just hate having people call attention to me. Period." So with that in mind, what's your wife's take on that type of, does she just love going to Cody's Magic Buddies shows?
um, I'll answer that. It's actually yes and no. So if I tell my wife I have to fly to Alabama to do this show, would you like for me to, see if I can get you a ticket and do you want to go? Most of the time, those are the no's. But when I tell her, hey, I've got a show in, Italy, I've got a show in in the UK or in France, would you like to? She's loving magic at then. She loves it at that point. Uh, but my wife actually, while she wouldn't go to a magic lecture and probably wouldn't go to a whole convention, because she has an interest in magic, but not the same interest as you and I. See, she's a hand therapist, certified hand therapist, and we have a program that we launched years ago called Rehabracadabra, using magic as a therapeutic modality for the hospital and clinic setting. And so we go into hospitals and clinics and universities, and we teach therapists how to use magic tricks to rehabilitate their clientele. So she definitely has an interest in learning magic, but it's for the purpose of continuing education for other therapists in order to benefit her patient population.
That is very cool. But one of
She is
my
pretty cool.
one of the very early times I don't know if I was married to Kim or we were, on the way to be married, but we were in Vegas and we went and saw Billy McComb do a show. And Billy McComb is a comedy magician you and I both admire. And I got a picture of me with him right there. I own his book. I mean, I love Billy McComb. And it was this sad show, Cody, where it was we heard it was in a Vegas casino. It was in one of the like corporate rooms with an air wall that they rented. There was a stage which did not even have a riser and 20 sad seats and these young magicians who were appallingly bad, and they had Billy anchor it, and he did some nasty stuff with pulling foam sausages out of somebody's pants, and they like the equivalent of the bra trick or something. I don't know, but my wife is like, "Is this the guy you just told me you love?" And I did because, like because there was that weird mix of complete sexist crap coming out of magicians' mouths, and my wife going like, "I there's, are you an alien? Why are we here?" I'm guessing you've had
Yeah.
experiences like that.
Yeah, I've had experiences like that. I used to love watching the old Billy McComb stuff, not the stuff that you just mentioned, but what I always loved about Billy McComb, I've seen him at a few conventions, I've met him once or twice, was the fact that he can go on stage with nothing more than a spool of thread in his pocket and do the gypsy thread or torn and stored thread. And just with that little spool, he could be on stage for 20 minutes and everybody in the audience was laughing and having a good time. This was his convention stuff, so it was family friendly. Kids could be in the audience, it was fine. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I always loved about the Billy McCombs, the Terry Seabrooks. Um, they were just entertainers, and that's the kind of a magician I wanted to be. I wanted to be somebody that could do that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Brad, Cody, spirit animals. So there's something else I wanted to ask you. I'm so glad you came on. Billy McComb personifies this for me. He was a performer and he was great at it. He was not necessarily the best sleight of hand practitioner, meaning um, if he could get away with something, he did. And for example, there's a deck switch, which is when you or just whatever you have to switch one item for another. And his method was he would take item A and put it in his right pocket, and then take item B out of his left pocket while he was walking, and um, fool people. But his point, I think, was I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to. This is good enough. And I'm wondering how you feel about that, because there are magicians, Cody, for example, who they learn. Let's learn a magic trick where you make where I can find the four aces in a pack, and then they'll learn the next variation of that, and the next, and they'll maybe hundreds of variations of that. Whereas Billy McComb, I think, would have said, "I already know how to do one of the variations, and it's the same trick, so I don't care." Where are you on that
Yeah.
between perfection of sleight of hand versus just the audience loves it? This experience is the same.
Okay. Again, let me sort of jump back here to my mentor in magic, Fred, the great Scott Donaldson. I once asked him what, because I wanted to know when I was a professional magician, because I'd already been working some restaurants and I already had a couple country clubs I was working, some close up magic at restaurants, which led to sometimes a birthday party or a church picnic or a corporate event if I was lucky, in the early days. And I wanted to know, I said, what's the difference between an amateur and a professional? How do I know when I'm a professional? And Fred used to say, an amateur, a magician, uh, can perform, 80 tricks, sort of, whereas a professional magician can perform really, really well. And again, it took me a while to sort of figure it out because early on, I didn't want to just to know how to force a card. I wanted to know every way to force a card on somebody. And you don't realize until you've done it years and years that the audience doesn't see it like that. They don't notice all the intricacies and the nuances of what you're trying to do. For them, the end result is, were they amazed and were they entertained? And
Right.
so if I can do those two things during my show, no matter what I did, if it was complicated or self-working, if I can have them be amazed and be entertained, I think I've done my job. I think I did what I'm supposed to do.
You speak truth. You speak truth. Yeah, it's so funny because at a magic conference, we really, as magicians, we reward those who come up with that clever innovation or a variant of something that we've already seen that seems unique and original. But even though to the lay audience, they cannot see the variant or the unique creation, and hearing that, that's kind of your approach is just if the audience is happy, then I'm happy. If they're hiring me back, I must be doing okay.
Well, and I haven't seen another sort of industry, I guess, or occupation where I found this to be true. Perhaps there are some, and I'm sure there are. But again, talking with Fred about it, he hated the term, he's a magician's magician. And you never hear about a painter's painter or a singer's singer. It's just you're either good or you're
Yeah.
not good. But I think there's this term in the magic community where we tend to put people a little bit on a higher pedestal. If you can come up with something that's so fooling, it's going to fool a magician. And most of the time I see stuff like that, not all the time, but most of the time I see those kinds of tricks, I am usually bored out of my mind.
Yeah. Let's talk about secrets. When
Okay.
you and I were little, I'm 55. Are we in the same realm there of age?
Yeah, I'm a few years younger than you, not by far.
So okay, so when we were little boys, magic secrets were secret, meaning you had to work to find them. You and I know without asking, you knew how to find a magic book in a public library, and
793.8, Brad.
I told my daughter that. My daughter works in a library, and I'm like, 793.8. And she said, what? That's so funny. Yeah, every magician has that number memorized. But now, because of YouTube, secrets are pretty easy to find if you're willing to type it in and do search. What's your take on the value of a secret to a magician now as compared to before? And is that anything you've been thinking about?
Yeah, I think the value of a secret is probably just as important to some magicians nowadays as it back in the day. Back in the day, you think back in the day of Houdini and his contemporaries. I mean, those guys were brutal when it came to secrets and finding out what the other guy's secret was. And one guy would be performing one illusion, then this guy would he figured out how he did it. So right across the street, he was doing the improved sawing in half version. Uh, I think that the magicians we compete with each other, and but ultimately I never worry about exposure. It's not something that I worry about. If I'm doing a show and I think to myself, well, what if after the show they go to YouTube and type in blah blah blah? Are they going to find out how I did my trick? And I mean, I even sell some of the stuff that I do in my professional show on my website, where the corporate clients, actually go to book me. And I have never once had a magician order anything off my site for the most part. And I don't think that laymen are as interested in the secrets as we are. The reason we're in the business, the reason we are magicians is because we are interested in the secrets. And if they were interested as much as we are, they would either be a full time pro or an amateur. And if they have that kind of passion to want to find out what the secret is, they loved it so much, it's a passion for them. I say I say go for it. That's how we get new amateurs. That's how we get more people interested in magic.
You're speaking truth. Yeah, for me the topic of secrets is really interesting when you talk about the community of magicians, because there has been and still is a very unique community of magicians, professionals and amateurs and enthusiasts. And that community, like when I was a little boy and joined the Magic Club in Denver, I had to say an oath and I had to write my name that I would not tell secrets. And I can't remember what, but like kind of neat, like mumbo jumbo and whatever.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of horseshit because you can look that up really easily. So I have argued with other older magicians who say we must protect secrets in our magic club. I'm like, that is not any longer what makes a magic club. It must be something besides secrets, because if you want a secret, it's a lot easier to find than finding the magic club and showing up in person. Somehow secrets have
Well, yeah.
changed. I haven't
There's
figured it
more
out yet.
information out there. I mean, I can't imagine being a having the interest enthusiasm that I did when I was a kid. I mean, I would have to wait for somebody to drive me to the library and then hope that there was maybe a new magic book out there. But what if there wasn't one on magic, and you get the ones on tricks and games, and sometimes that would have a magic trick in there, or maybe a book or a riddle book, there'd be a magic, like you just hope. I mean, now if a kid's interested in magic, or anyone in general, I mean, YouTube is your friend. Now, there's good and bad to that. You can go to YouTube and learn how to do quite a few tricks, and I've seen a lot of them out there that are actually pretty good. The downside of that, with the flip side of that, is on YouTube there is a lot of bad teaching and a lot of bad performances, a lot of people showing incorrect technique. And if you don't know the correct technique to begin with, it's hard to know if you're learning these secrets or these sleights the right way or not. So that's why I think that getting involved in a good old fashioned magic club is probably a cool way to go. It builds a sense of community. At least my magic clubs back in the day, that's where I met Fred the Great Scott Donaldson. We went there at a Luby's cafeteria on whatever day it met, evening time, and the older performers would sort of help us younger performers, and we get to ask questions, and they wouldn't always tell us, but we got to ask the questions, and it was more of a mentor program than I think it is today.
Yeah, I think that's true. I do sort of
Yeah.
miss, I mean, the old codger in me does miss the old days when all learning was by books. And you know, well, Amateur Magician's Handbook, is that what you started with?
Henry Hay, yeah.
All right, well, that is a hard way to learn because it takes you have to read it and it's very linear. If you do it out of order, it doesn't work, and your brain has to learn that. And bad line drawings and describing the middle knuckle of your third finger, and you're like, which one is number three? And in order to learn those tricks, you and I kind of proved ourselves to the other magicians that okay, Cody is willing to sort through that freaking puzzle of a book to get as far as he has. So I do miss that, but no doubt, come on, video. Instead of saying the third or second digit or knuckle of your third finger, you just do it on a video. And they're like, right there, done.
Yeah, instead of describing it, you show them. And so I think I know a lot of the old timers, and I say old timers, I'm almost getting up there a little bit. You know, like in 15 years from now, I'll be probably all these young kids. Uh, but I think that we need to use technology to our benefit. No matter what we're doing, it would be, I think, a disservice to our craft if we didn't use video as one of the ways that we can teach and instruct. Because, like you pointed out, it's way easier to teach someone good technique on a video, where to put your finger or where to hold, how to hold the deck, than it may be to describe that in 3 pages of an old book with no pictures.
Brutal. Well, let me ask you about this. The if you would ask me 2 years ago, what do I think of Instagram magic? And by that I would mean like a trick that works perfectly to that one angle of the camera, and looks really, really magical, but would never work for a work. You could never do that as part of your job because people are not at one fixed spot. People have different
Yeah.
angles and whatever. So, had you asked me if an Instagram magic trick had any relevance in the world, I would have said those are stupid. And now we live in a world where we are all performing to a fixed camera position. So I feel like, well, I was wrong. And actually, there's a lot of creativity coming out with people working to one camera in a way that is baffling and creative and fun. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I know. I'm a exact. Here you go. Spirit animal. Spirit animal. I was just like you at that. I remember when I used to get really not angry, but I would get a little bit. I don't know. Whenever I would see someone's promo video, and now as a magician, we know what a lot of the marketing tricks are. We know what a lot of stuff that they're doing, and it was always a little bit disconcerting to me to see someone's promo video filled with what I knew to be not realistic performances. I know what trick he's doing. There's no way there's people standing behind
Yeah.
him and that are amazed. I knew it was kind of set up. It had to be like, right here, the camera. You can't have. It's just a one-on-one thing. So at first, I didn't care for it at all. But again, March of this year, or actually for me, it wasn't until about the second week of April, we found ourselves performing online again to a one camera. And again, you can do things on camera to a straight on shot that you simply cannot do in the real world in a live show. So you can either say to yourself, I'm not going to do that type of magic, or you can embrace this new style of magic because there are some pretty cool things that you can do over a Zoom show that you just can't do live.
That's the part that is giving me hope. And by the way, I'll warn you right now as I yammer on a little bit. We're getting close to the last question, and I'm going to ask you, Cody, what gives you hope? So while I yammer on, you can think about that. But I saw this magician, you might know him, James Sandine out of Chicago. He was working out something for his Zoom show, and he was showing me how he was interacting. So let me see if I get this right. Yeah, so imagine in my screen, I'm kind of poking into your screen. So he had a way, he'd figured out a way to interact with two screens like you and I have now, where they're handing stuff back and forth to each other, and just really super clever, and would never work, of course, with a live audience. But I loved it. Was just, and it gave me such joy to think that is something brand new. It's totally fresh. And the secret is not important. It's the fun that's important. And having us embrace, instead of, let's put a camera on me doing what used to be done on a stage. Instead, it's like just thinking new. Like, I have to fill 35 minutes and I need to entertain an audience. Now go. That second thing is really exciting, I think, and gives me hope.
It's fun and it's new, and uh, it's been a long time. Well, you know how it is, Brad. When you're in magic for 20 plus years, 30 years or so, it's really hard to be fooled by a magic trick. It's really hard to be impressed by something. It does happen, and when it does happen, those times are so few and so far apart. But just the other day, I was doing an online sort of jam session with a buddy of mine that lives in Canada, and he did something for me that absolutely positively blew me away. Like it was like the most impossible trick that you can even fathom. It was a card trick, but it was absolutely positively. He had the deck was sitting, here on camera. You could see it the whole time, and any card, any number. It was basically that sort of thing. And it literally, as soon as he did it, after he did it, and he counts down 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and slowly turns over the card, I just got this huge smile on my face. I had no idea how he did it. As a magician, I'm thinking, I'm always thinking how, something, and maybe it has something to do with the video medium, but I had no idea. And that feeling was really a good feeling to have. And like what you just said, that kind of gives me a little bit of hope too. Um,
Did he
yeah,
end up tipping his method to you?
or we can turn our backs to it. But I think we need to be as positive as we can and just embrace all these changes and just see what comes up, because something awesome can become of anything.
Okay, how about here's the no bullshit part of the call. How hard is that for you? Because I am completely on board and agree with everything, but then on a day-to-day experience, there are days I don't feel creative, and I don't feel hopeful, and I just want my old job back. So I'm with you, but I'm saying it's hard, right? Where are you on that
It,
continuum?
yeah, it's not easy. I don't think that I just got an email from my kiddo's school. It was right before the break, and it was an email where they were wanting to know as parents if we had any concerns about our children, being depressed because having to stay home away from their friends or during this pandemic. Our kids are staying home,
Right?
and so fortunate that my three boys, they are doing the online school thing. They are rocking it. They are happy. They're healthy. Um, don't deserve to have three kids as awesome as these, like just no problems whatsoever. So seeing them and seeing how well they're dealing with it, or how easy it seems to be that they're not all kids are dealing with it as easy, but I'm just saying from my personal experience, seeing how they're able to deal with it um, at their age, when now's the time when he should be in high school and going out more with his friends and going to prom and hanging out with his friends at whatever, the bowling alley or whatnot, just, and they're not doing that. But I look at them and I see how well they're adjusting to it, and just their positive attitude, and that honestly, I'm being 100% honest, that sort of helps me kind of put everything into perspective and helps me to have a positive attitude, because this whole not performing thing is it's not fun. And but when I look at them and I see the direction that their lives are going, even if I did think that my life was just, oh, it's just so terrible,
Right.
just having them and looking at them, I'm like, they give me hope for the future.
Well, you must be a good dad. We're gonna wrap this up. So first question: would you be willing to come back with your magic studio and kind of show us around your studio and maybe even show us a trick and talk more about the I don't we do whatever you talk about whatever you want. We,
Okay, that's great because I've got these. I'd like to talk to you guys about Amway, if you don't mind. Uh, no, no, I'd be happy to. Like right now, we're sitting here in the guest bedroom, and it's sort of very casual. But yeah, if you if you wanted to see what my studio looks like, it looks really good from a certain few camera angles.
Mm,
But if I like move the, it's like, oh my gosh, this is where you're actually, doing a lot of your work. From one, it looks like this beautiful green screen with this beautiful stage, and then if I move my laptop this way, my camera, you're looking at a lawnmower. Um,
I hear you, brother. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Well, let's do that. But
but it works. It works.
let me wrap this time up before I'm going to ask you about hope. But Cody, it's been such a pleasure for me. These interviews are fun because I am able to use them as an excuse to call people I totally admire and respect and just want to know better and say like, tell me about your life. And I'm really grateful to you for sharing some of your life with us. Thanks.
No, my pleasure, Brad. It was, like I told you when you called me about this initially. I told you that I wanted to do it um, because I'd never done it before.
Oh,
And that's part of this whole learning new things before. I've never done a Facebook Live. So when you asked me about it, it was a new opportunity. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I'd love to do it again if you have the time.
second to last question. Is that your card?
That was my card. That actually was my card. The six of spades at position 19.
Oh my
So
one. Yeah. All right. So here we are. Racial tensions. We got all kinds of chaos with the national news and a country divided, and we have a economy where people are suffering, and our part of it, the performing arts, meeting and convention and parties, that is down. Our peers in the hospitality industry are messed up. Lots of bad things, but what is giving you hope?
what's giving me hope? Well, my background is science. And as much as I would love to define myself as, just a magician or performer or entertainer, I mean, we're the sum of all of our parts. Add in husband, father, all that stuff. Part of one of those parts is science. Is science. I'm a scientist, and I think it was. Let me see, whose book was it? Dr. Steven Pinker, I think it was. I think he's a Harvard researcher, and he was saying, according to his studies, that we're actually getting better as humans. We're actually becoming less violent. We're actually becoming more compassionate. The number of violent crimes is down. The number of hate crimes is down. Now, if you're looking at, it's hard to get that impression that all this stuff is going down. And sort of part of his research is the fact that we have access to so much media now. With Facebook, I can go on my other laptop at night, I can pop it up, and I can read 20 stories about terrible things that should make me sad. Whereas 20 years ago, with no internet, I didn't know about this shooting in some small town somewhere. So it appears that nowadays that we're actually, people are more violent, people don't care as much, when actually what the data shows is that we are becoming more compassionate. The crime rate is going down. So from a scientific viewpoint, just based on data and the numbers and the facts, that sort of gives me hope for the future of humanity.
You're a good man. I'd read something similar. I wish I could tell you what it was, but along the same lines, like even though it doesn't seem like that when you read the news, The amount of famine is less than it has been historically, and the amount of war is less than it has been historically. So, right on, brother.
Yeah, we're all getting better. We're all getting better. We just have to look on the bright side and don't be afraid to try something new.
Anything I can do to make your day better, Cody Fisher?
Yes, you can let me publish that card to pocket routine of yours.
Have you seen that really?
I haven't seen it, Brad. I've actually, I think I heard it. It was on a, you did a talk. I think you're talking about HIPAA actually, because I've talked about HIPAA. I think you were doing a talk for a medical group, and somehow I got a recording of it. And so I've never seen you do it in my mind as a magician, just knowing what you're probably doing. I could probably write it up just from listening to it. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what? That just sounds like such a fun commercial routine. Sounds like something that I would do. But then again, it's not mine, it's yours. So I've never done it,
Well,
nor I
it's
would.
homing card.
But if I could control you into writing it up, then I would have no qualms about performing it.
I don't want to give it out to the world, but you can have it any day of the week, dude. It's yours. Yeah, yeah, that is a treat for me. So here's what you just gave me. I, I love magic, and I feel like I'm pretty good in front of an audience. But to have a magician like you say, "Oh, I like that trick," that felt good.
Yeah, I wanted to do it. Now, I would never have done it because it's not my trick. But I remember when I was listening, isn't that weird? I was listening to a trick. That sounds so bizarre. But when I was listening to you perform, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I know what he did here. I know he must have had this here. Okay, here's the double. Here's it. I'm going over all the moves in my mind, and I could recreate it. But I'm like, that's Brad's. I can't do that.
Well, dude, you've been so generous with me. Honestly, if you want that trick, take it. But it's not even mine to give; it's homing card, right?
But your take on it was different. You had a slightly different take. I mean, I've read the original homing card in Stars of Magic, and honestly, I like yours better.
Well, that just makes the day better. Well, let's talk offline. If you ever want it, I'll give you anything I have. I, but yeah, you'll be disappointed because there's just not that much there. Oh, although get this, so I messed that trick up recently because I've done that trick 1,000 times, and it requires you to start with an indifferent card in your pocket. And of
Yep.
course, I've messed it up a million times, which means occasionally I have to sneak an indifferent card into my pocket. Uh, but it had been a really long time since I performed it. I did this during the pandemic with a live audience, and I got to the part where it was too late to sneak a card in my pocket. I just completely spaced it, and so that trick was messed up. I messed up that trick when it's almost infallible. Oh,
You know, it's amazing. If you ask me what one trick have I probably done more than any other trick, is probably Professor's Nightmare. Our viewers, if we're still on, are not going to know what that is. But I've probably customized that trick for comedy clubs, for corporate. I've customized it for educational things for school to do with character. Have a bully presentation for Professor's Nightmare. Have a goal setting presentation for. I've got like all these like 10 or 50-minute scripts for Professor's Nightmare. And I remember one time I was speaking for a group. It was a pre-medical fraternity, and they hired me as actually a speaker. And I had a certain amount of key points I wanted to get through, and I'm doing Professor's Nightmare. And I literally get to the point where you're going to bring the ends from the bottom to the top, do the move. And for whatever reason, Brad, I don't know what happened to my brain. I forgot how to do it. A trick I'd done 1,000 times. I forgot how to do it.
I've been there. I was talking to this speaker during the pandemic, and you've met him a million times. He was saying, "Oh, I got my speech ready, got my keynote, got my website. All I need is marketing. I just need clients." And I'm thinking, okay, here's what you need to do: go bomb, not bomb once, go bomb 500 times, and then you'll be ready. Like, it you have to be the part where Cody Fisher screws up Professor's Nightmare. That's when you're a pro, is when you've done that 1,000 times and then you screw it up still. It's just hard to be a pro.
Well, because you know how to get out of it then. So you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this. So I got to the point where I just, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was I got on a plane or something, jet lag, or for whatever reason, I could not remember how to bring the ropes up. But if you know Professor's Nightmare, I know you do, Brad. You know the in position of where you need to. You know how the ropes need to be.
Right.
So the audience had no idea that I forgot I brought the ropes up, and when I pulled it, the short one was still short. And once or twice, they just thought it was part of the presentation. So I knew how the ropes needed to be, and so I just remember just arranging them in my hand what I knew they had to be, and then doing the move. But the audience was none the wiser. For me, I was scared to death.
That's so fun because I do a multi-phase rope routine, like a cut and restored rope with a spectator, similar, I guess. And I remember being on stage going, "Holy cow! Wait, what? I don't know. This isn't working." I'm with you. All right, everybody, say thank you to Cody Fisher. CodyFisher.com. CodyFisherMagic.com.
Let's do CodyFisher.com. Let's try that one.
Cody, hang on with me, everybody. I'm grateful to you. Thanks for hanging out.